Have you ever wondered what the world would look like if the Cold War wasn't so cold? What if the decades of tension, the proxy wars, and the nuclear brinkmanship finally spilled over into a full-blown global conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union? It's a chilling thought, a terrifying what-if that our parents and grandparents lived in fear of every single day. Today, we're going to step into that alternate timeline. We'll explore the hypothetical scenario of a hot Cold War, not to scare, but to understand the fragile peace we've inherited and the catastrophic consequences we narrowly avoided. So how does it start? It wouldn't take much. Imagine it's 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The standoff is at its peak. A Soviet submarine deep in the Atlantic is being harassed by American destroyers. The sub's crew is cut off from Moscow, exhausted, and they believe a war has already started. They have a nuclear torpedo, and all it takes is the agreement of 3 officers to launch. In our history, one man, Vasily Arkhipov, said no, but in this timeline, he says yes. The torpedo is launched. An American aircraft carrier is vaporized in a flash of nuclear fire. The line has been crossed. The world holds its breath, but only for a moment. Retaliation is swift and devastating. The US doctrine of massive retaliation means a single nuclear attack is met with an overwhelming counterstrike. Before the Kremlin can even process the news from the Atlantic, early warning systems light up across the Soviet Union. B-52 bombers, already in the air, receive their final orders. Submarines launch their payloads. From silos buried in the American heartland, intercontinental ballistic missiles, or ICBMs, roar to life, arching across the globe towards Moscow, Leningrad, and other major Soviet cities and military sites. The Soviets respond in kind. Their own missile forces, the RVSN, unleash their arsenal. The world's 2 superpowers have just signed a global death warrant. The first few hours are pure chaos. Major cities in North America, Europe, and the Soviet Union become ground zero. Washington, D.C., Moscow, London, Paris, Beijing, all are erased from the map. The initial blasts are horrific enough, but they are just the beginning. The firestorms that follow engulf the ruins, consuming oxygen and creating hurricane-force winds. Millions perish instantly. Millions more are left to face a world they no longer recognize, suffering from horrific burns and radiation sickness. There are no emergency services, no governments left to coordinate a response. It is a complete societal collapse. The military conflict itself would grind on, at least for a while. NATO and Warsaw Pact forces, already facing off in Europe, would engage in a brutal conventional war across a radioactive landscape. But with supply lines obliterated and command structures gone, armies would quickly disintegrate. Soldiers would be left stranded, fighting for their own survival in a poisoned land, more concerned with finding clean water than fighting an enemy. Naval fleets at sea might survive the initial exchange, but without ports to return to, they become floating, isolated tribes on a dead ocean. Then comes the real slow killer, nuclear winter. The immense fires from burning cities and forests would throw millions of tons of soot and smoke into the upper atmosphere. This thick black cloud would spread, enveloping the globe and blocking out the sun. Temperatures would plummet, even in the summer. Crops would fail worldwide. Famine would set in on a scale never before seen. The agricultural systems that feed billions would simply cease to exist. This isn't just a problem for the Northern Hemisphere. The atmospheric effects would be global, leading to widespread starvation, even in countries untouched by the initial bombings. In this post-apocalyptic world, the concept of a nation-state is a distant memory. Survivors would band together in small, isolated communities, struggling to find uncontaminated food and water. Knowledge of technology, medicine, and science would be lost. Life would regress to a pre-industrial, almost medieval state, but with the lingering terror of radiation, hotspots, and mutated wildlife. Generations would be born into this broken world, with the stories of the before times sounding like impossible myths. The sky would be perpetually gray, the air cold, and the future bleak. The great monuments of human civilization, from the pyramids to the Eiffel Tower, would stand as silent, radioactive tombs. Would humanity survive at all? Perhaps. Small pockets, particularly in the southern hemisphere, which was less targeted, might endure. But the human population would be a tiny fraction of what it was. The genetic damage from radiation would haunt our species for centuries. The recovery, if it ever happened, would take thousands of years. we would have thrown away millennia of progress in a single fiery afternoon. Thinking about this isn't about morbid fascination, it's about gratitude. It's a profound reminder of the stakes. We owe an incredible debt to the diplomats, the leaders, and even the ordinary soldiers like Vasily Arkhipov, who stared into the abyss and chose to step back. They navigated the most dangerous period in human history and brought us through to the other side. This alternate reality shows us the ultimate price of failure, the consequence of letting fear and ideology escalate without restraint. It underscores the vital importance of diplomacy, communication, and understanding, even with our fiercest adversaries. The Cold War may be over, but the weapons that defined it are not. The story of our survival is a testament to our better angels, and this terrifying what-if is a warning against our worst demons. The peace we enjoy is not guaranteed. It was hard-won and remains incredibly fragile. Let's remember that. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into a history that thankfully never was. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the biggest questions of history and science.